Hey guys. I decided just to do the audio because I don't really have room on a lot of my slides for the little visual video. Anyways, my project is called Youth in the Outside World, and it's a little bit based on my dissertation topic. And part of this came from when I was reading the literature about nature connection and how kids today aren't spending, nearly as many hours outside as they, when you compare it to how many hours they spend with technology. And a lot of the literature is from the perspective of the adults that are in these children's lives. So parents, teachers, counselors, and club leaders and things like that. And I kind of wanted to find out, how do kids feel about their outside world? And that leads me to my purpose, which was to explore how seventh grade students from a middle school here in Florida think about spending time outside. It's one of the cities here in Florida. I didn't really specify just because this is a unofficial research project thing. And anyways, hopefully this information can kind of ideally be used to help bridge the gap between kids and outside. So my objectives, the first is to discover how do youth envision their ideal outdoor setting through illustration, and then what do you think about the outdoors, kind of generally speaking, and what motivates them to spend time outside. So I had visual arts-based research collection with youth created or through youth created drawings, I guess. I don't think I really said that right, but anyhow, and then along with the drawings, I had some qualitative questions that were open-ended questions that I would then code. And how I did this is I have a friend who works at this school, and he's been a health teacher there for a little while, and he administered this as an assignment to his class, like during his lessons on mental health. And I ended up having like over 120 responses, but I only took out 20 for this assignment, and I kind of shuffled and then randomly picked every fifth one for this. And then as far as like any relation to the subjects, I don't have any relation to them. I didn't really collect any demographic information about the kids. As far as my subjectivity with the subject of connection to nature, I mean, I have a clear opinion that nature is a vital part of being human, and I think it's potentially one of the reasons why we might be having like a lot of problems. And I think it's just really important to kind of get this relationship mended. So with that in mind, this is kind of just going through my actual like data collection and what was asked. And so I asked them to draw a picture of their picture perfect outdoor space. So I was trying to get them to imagine, what would make outside really like appealing to them, or make it more, or just like, yeah, what did they imagine to be a great place outside. And then I've just sort of separated my activity questions. So this set, what would you do in this space? 3 things that would make kids your age want to play outside more, which I would definitely change that question to just simply what would make you play outside more, but I can't go back and change it. And then what is your favorite thing about outside? And then this question, what would you rather, or would you rather be inside or outside, and why? This question kind of served 2 different roles. I mean, so this set of question gets to more of like the positive things about nature and what would actually motivate kids to want to be outside. And then this set of questions with the mosquitoes and the hot sun kind of gets more at like the negative things. What would you rather? So if they answered, I'd rather be inside, that would feed into this. And then what do you not like about outside was a question that was asked. And so the data from this kind of fed into sort of the negative perceptions of the outdoors. And then I had this last little set of questions that seem a little bit off, like a little bit random. So it's something about nature that you're curious about. And I kind of, this question is sort of getting at the application part of this, as sort of like, what could we do to capture their attention? And then what are your top 3 favorite TV shows, games, or movies? And then someone you look up to. So I'll explain those when we get to the analysis part. Okay, so this is, I decided to kind of present things in word clouds. It was really fun playing around with these. And so what we've got here are the results from that set of positive questions. And you can see that play was a really, really like common answer. It was included in many of the answers for those of what would you do outside and what would make outside more fun, that kind of thing. Friends is the second largest word here, which is definitely something I hadn't encountered in the literature so far about, I mean, the number of times that friends came up in response to questions like, what is fun about outside? So many people said, or kids said, it's because I see my friends. It's when I play with my friends. I mean, that was just such a common answer. And then what would make kids want to play outside more friends your age, friends to play with that like to play outside. I mean, those were some of the direct quotes from that. And then outside of that, space was a really popular thing, and that was referring to room to run, room to play, room to be free and roam. You also had a lot of words that were very nature focused, a lot of words that were discovery focused, like explore, some great emotion words like joy and excitement. I classified that under pleasant. Water was common, which is not surprising with these kids being Florida kids. And you also had this aspect of relaxation, which is something that I have encountered in the literature a lot, especially with adults. But by far, play and friends, and then several of these are nature related, were the main aspects of this. So if my slide will go on to the next slide here. Okay. So this is the word cloud out of the couple of negative questions. So this is what came out of what do you not like about outside, and from the kids who reported inside was their preference. Now with this bunch of 20 drawings that I pulled, only 5 of the kids said inside over outside, which I was really happy about. I will say I'm not sure if that's going to be the findings if I were to analyze the rest of them. I think that percentage would potentially go up a little bit, but I'm not sure. Anyhow, so this is kind of what came to light. Bugs was a huge, huge thing. In general, unpleasant. There was a lot of responses that were like smelly, dirty, sweaty, pollution, smoke, trash, those kinds of things. You also will notice fear is another one on here. And that came about, there was a few responses that was like fear of dangerous animals. But the others were, what do you not like about outside? And she answered, people walking by. I went ahead and classified that under the fear, but it could be that's a misinterpretation as well. Another child wrote, I like to be inside because I feel more secure inside my home. And then another person wrote dangerous people as something bad about outside. And you also see hot. And I could have, again, classified hot under unpleasant. And you also will see bad weather. And really, I think if I wanted to be like super like cut and dry, I could classify several of those into unpleasant as well, like hot, bugs, and mosquitoes and bad weather. And then it would just be unpleasant would be the overwhelming one. And then fear. And then I have Fortnite with the boys. And that is to represent that there's other fun things to do inside. Now, out of my group of 20, I only had one that wrote that as their reason for playing inside. The other 4 kids wrote reasons about either fear or unpleasantness. But just in my knowledge of what I've read from the other 100 responses, there is definitely that element of wanting to play the games and stuff that you can play inside. So I'm going to just breeze through this one. This is those kind of the 3 questions at the end. Really sweetly, their role model by and large was mom and their parents. So not too worried about some social media influencer, I guess. But I also was looking at this too, like, is there a person that, you know, we could use to sort of like be our spokesperson, you know, to like encourage this group? And not in this stack, but in my other 100, there is lots of mentions of this Cristiano Ronaldo. I think he's I'm pretty sure he's a soccer player. And I may have said his name wrong because I don't know. But he would be a source perhaps. Now, media-wise, I have the hand here to represent magic, the little like explosion for the like nature of the shows being very warlike or violent, if you will. Anime was also really popular. Now, what I just thought was interesting was that 60% of the shows were not taking place in reality. Only 4 shows mentioned out of like 30 shows were actual, like in the real world, took place on planet Earth within the realm of our like physical reality. So I don't know if there's any correlation in the fact that like a lot of the things that they watch are in this sort of otherworldly, post-apocalyptic, very like, you know, Call of Duty and Fortnite and a little, you know, more battle-y and stuff. I don't know if there's a correlation between that and then kids being more scared about outside, because historically, like, we're actually living in one of the safest times of all like humanity when you look at data and stuff like that. So the fact that fear has gone up, well, in essence, we're safer, especially here in America, than we, in the grand scheme of things. Anyways, I don't want to get too far off on history. Anyhow, it's an interesting thing. So this is my kind of what I did to represent the data from the drawings. And this is, again, kind of like a word cloud thing. And so I have the images that were really popular in the drawings, like 90% of the drawings had the sky scene with the clouds and the sun. 70% of the drawings had trees and forest. 70% of the drawings had a lone happy person in the forest. And then as you get to the smaller things like the water scene and the house, the wildlife, the friends playing in the background picnic, and flowers, those are mentioned 25% by 25% of the kids, or to 15% of the kids. So still really commonly mentioned, and really cutely with the picnic thing is that actually in the textual responses, a lot of kids mentioned food as something that was important to them being outside. All right, so major themes in the drawing. I'm kind of trying to keep this under 15 minutes. Outside is timeless. They drew the same picture we drew with the corner sun and the sky and the trees. I mean, this is just like the same thing we always drew when we grew up. They also had primarily natural spaces in their drawings. I mean, and if it wasn't a natural space, it was their house and it was their home being drawn. And so I got the impression that outside should be natural to them. They feel like outside makes them happy and that nature is a place for me. That's what I got from the solo girl. Now, I think it's really interesting because the picture kind of doesn't quite align with the text responses of it being, in the pictures they were solo, but in the text responses, friends and play was the primary focus. And so that's kind of like a little bit contradictory, but something that I think I would love to explore a little bit further. So my major themes with the drawings and the pictures here is that outside is social, it's a space for play. Nature is itself appreciated and desired. Kids want things to do outside. They don't want to be bored outside. And then negatively, outside can be darn unpleasant, as we all know. And then outside is perceived as less safe than inside. Really, I was quite happy to learn from this that I feel like kids are still very drawn to nature. I feel like they still appreciate nature. And their curiosity is really high in plants and animals. And so I think that's still a great avenue to reach them in the school setting, especially. And then friends seem to be a very important part of outside time. So just my reflection, I'd say kind of like I alluded to earlier, I don't think the drawings were enough. I mean, if I had gone off those, I wouldn't have gotten that friend piece, which seems to be so important. I wouldn't have necessarily picked up on the play piece either. And so that's something that warrants some further investigation, I think. Like, why weren't those things included in the drawings? Why did they see, when they drew themselves in nature, why were they alone versus when they answered the questions, they talked about how important the friends were. So something interesting there. And overall, I felt like sometimes it's okay to not have demographics. I felt like I didn't lose that much from not having that. And if anything, it maybe helped me a little bit because I wasn't putting in my own bias. I wasn't like remembering things I read in the literature about certain populations and their findings in their own study. And it was all just very like, I don't know, it was just sweet little kids whose role model is their mom drawing pictures. It was adorable. So anyways, I really enjoyed this. And overall, thank you so much for listening. I'm sorry it was a little bit long. And as we go into summer, just like the kids have warned us, we got to be prepared for the bugs, the mosquitoes, and the hot. So stay cool, everybody. Bye.